Well, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folari, and our guest this morning is Mr. Femi Babafemi. Mr. Babafemi is the Director of Media and Advocacy at the NDLEA, National Drug Law Enforcement Agency. So, a fine morning to you, Femi.
Very well, thank you.
All right, then. Okay, I think everybody can see from your news unit that you've been very, very busy in recent times. And it struck us that we might just look at a progress report on the endeavors of NDLEA vis-a-vis your mandate. What can you tell us before we get into some of the specifics and maybe even spectacular cases that we are having? The fight against illicit drugs, illegal drugs. If you were to look at it year on year, give us an idea. Is it pretty much the same? Has it gotten tougher? Or, have systems improved such that there is a lowering of such incidents? Just, as I said, in the nature of something of a progress report on the exacting work that you guys are doing.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate you for that question and for having me on this program this morning. Definitely, there have been quite a lot of improvements, achievements in the work we're doing. Exactly where we are now, definitely, it's very far from where we were some 3 years ago. And today, when you talk of the major areas of our operation, whether the drug demand reduction or the drug supply reduction. And let me talk to you about the drug demand reduction. That is where we try to raise awareness about the dangers of substance abuse and illicit drug trafficking, as well as providing treatment and support to those who are struggling with substance abuse, and then their integration back into their families and their communities. We've had quite some tremendous mileage in that regard. Today, we're discussing this topic because there have been quite a lot of awareness within the polity. There have been that the sensitization of the people, of the various stakeholders to the dangers, the menace of this drug menace. And so, when you look at our commands, our formations across the country, every week they go all out in partnership with other stakeholders, the civil society organizations, non-governmental organizations, to go to schools, to go to faith-based worship centers, to palaces of traditional rulers, to communities, to sensitize them, to raise awareness about substance abuse so that people can be well informed to take the right decision when they are faced with the challenge or the temptation of going into substance abuse. That is the first step, raising the awareness of the people about this. And we're glad today that indeed 3 years down the line, under the current leadership of the agency, there has been that level of awareness where everybody talks about this, and every parent now, they are very conscious, even though we're not where we are aiming to be yet, but then we've gone quite far in that regard. Again, coming to providing support to those who are struggling with substance abuse. Again, I'll tell you that the NDLEA today has 30 treatment and counseling centers across the country, through which we have treated more than 33,000 persons. That's also a huge figure within the last 3 years, and we're also still expanding the scope of our operation in that regard. As I speak with you, I know that before the end of this year, we'll be commissioning 3 additional treatment and counseling centers, new model ones, 3 ones across, in parts of the country. So that's another thing. And coming to the supply reduction, where we actually got access to an availability of these illicit substances. Again, I'll tell you that within the last 3 years, the agency has made well over 52,000 arrests. And beyond that, we've had in excess of 9 million kilograms of assorted illicit substances mobbed up from across our streets, across our borders. That's also huge. That's probably one of the biggest anywhere in the world within the time frame. And beyond withdrawing all of these things from circulation, that is the seizures of these illicit substances. Again, when you look at our prosecution, for people we have arrested, and this is not sparing anybody, including the big ones, the big barons. I mean, we had more than 50 of them behind bars, arrested, and so we don't just go after the moles, we don't just go after the traffickers or the dealers, we go after those. Where we arrest those ones, we mop up those ones, then we don't just arrest there, we go after those who are funding, who are sponsoring, those that have been faceless for years, we go after them and ensure that they are brought to face the law. And in the last 3 years, again, I'll tell you that we had more than 9,500 convictions of those who are dealing in these illicit substances, including the barons, some of who are presently behind the bars.
Okay. Now, you touched on something. You mentioned that there has always been a program for victims, that is users who now need treatment. A lot of people might not have necessarily known about that aspect of your job, as well as that of preventing the whole supply chain. You've been very, very notable in that regard. Maybe this is a time to understand what it is that we're dealing with. We're calling them drugs. What are the most, but when you itemize them, there's so many drugs, I'm sure you're going to be very familiar with them. There was a time when the drug in Nigeria was marijuana, but nowadays, I understand that the marijuana that people know, it now has a synthetic version. And I think they refer to this as loud, and I don't know, that might be more dangerous. So what are I don't know if the drugs of yesteryears are still very much present, and that's, most people only know about marijuana. But could you just enlighten us on the kind of drugs that the NDLEA is now dealing with?
All right, thank you very much again, Yori. I'll tell you that indeed the drugs that, the ones you call the drugs of yesteryears, that's what a lot of people used to know as those drugs in circulation, especially cannabis. Because,
cannabis, yes.
That cannabis is homegrown, but then unfortunately, over time, people had to go out again because they are no longer satisfied with what they get, what they derive from the locally grown cannabis. So they had to go abroad again to go and be importing the synthetic variants or strains of this particular psychoactive substance. And that's where you have Loud, Colorado, and Arizona. So all of these, especially, they are all imported and brought in, and more damaging to our people, to their mental health, to their well-being, and again to law and order, because these things alter the way the mind, the body of those that consume them think, the way they act, the way they behave, and ultimately, when taken over time, there's no doubt about the fact that this leads or causes psychosis. So apart from cannabis, which is actually the most commonly abused psychoactive substance, because when you go by the 2018 report of, the drug use survey report that was published in 2018, we have 10.6 million Nigerians abusing that particular substance. When you look at 10.6 million Nigerians, that's more than the population of a lot of us African countries, including European countries. So that's a huge population. That is out of the 14.3 million Nigerians abusing, captured, that's within the age bracket of 15 and 64, captured to be abusing illicit substances. With that survey, 10.6 million, that's a shock. That's the bulk of them. 10.6 million of them abuse cannabis alone. And there is no denying the fact that indeed that's a major challenge. That's a major drug of abuse of choice of our people, and which indeed causes a lot of damage. It causes a lot of damage to their health, because that's why you see on our street you have quite some young people who are suffering from psychosis. This as a result. Well, we are not saying, I'm not drawing the conclusion that this is all about. It's all about cannabis. There are quite a lot of them. When they abuse even this same cannabis, including the synthetic strains, over time, that no longer satisfies them, so they have to combine it with some other things, that is including cocaine, heroin, as well as the opioids. I mean, when you look at some of our reports that we release every week, you see that in recent months, we've had quite a lot of seizures of opioids, especially codeine and tramadol, especially tramadol, both at our ports in Lagos and in Rivers State. That's One in Rivers State. I can say in the last 3 months, we've made more than 100 million pills of tramadol alone, and different variants of that again, which is really, really, that's a very deadly or dangerous one. These are tramadol that are higher, far higher than the legally or the licit allowed one. That is the 50 milligram and 100 milligram that is medically allowed in Nigeria. But what we've been dealing with, what we've been seizing in recent months, they are 225, 250 milligrams, which are really, really very lethal or very deadly, which are really, really dangerous. We've had millions of those seized recent times. That's one. Again, you also look at such drugs as, while dealing with those even conventional ones, we also have another one that we're dealing with, and that's what we call that comes under the category of new psychoactive substances that were not conventionally captured. That's where you have quite a lot of these measures that some of our young people try to prepare on their own. And then you also have some of these herbal products. They come under that new psychoactive substance. So we have quite a lot of them, talking of Apuskura, talking of monkey tail. They come in different names depending on wherever they are being produced. That's across the country. So all of these, they are all drugs that are really that have really come under our focus, and indeed we're going all out to ensure that we block them from circulation in the interest of public health, and especially the well-being of our young people who are really going for these things.
Quite a wide expanse of drugs you've mentioned, apart from, what did we call it, marijuana, cannabis, and also you've spoken about cocaine, heroin, codeine, tramadol. We'll come back and maybe deal with this, and especially the carriers, how this trade is kept alive. But before then, what is the attitude of the agency to an increasing tolerance in the West, in other countries, for the drug, legacy drug perhaps, which is the cannabis, marijuana, so much so that it has been the opposite of criminalized, especially in parts of America, in parts of Europe. It is actually seen as something of a social drug that you can buy under controlled circumstances, even have delivered to you. I'm sure the NDLA will be very, very aware of these movements across the globe. So what is our attitude to it in terms of the seriousness with which we pursue these kind of drugs in our own territory?
Yes, that's a very complex area. Indeed, going by law today, cannabis is, even possession of it is criminal, it's illegal. And then there have been quite a lot of arguments about cannabis globally. It was something the World Health Organization has still categorized as something that is dangerous to health because it causes psychosis. And so the CND, Commission of Narcotics Drugs, that's the United Nations body, that's the umbrella body of United Nations Office in the management or the control of illicit substances globally, even though that has been removed from Schedule 4, that is now expecting or empowering each country to determine how they deal with it or how they control it. So that in Nigeria at the moment, cannabis is still a drug that is illegal, even possession of it. So, having said that, indeed, globally, there has not been, even those that had decriminalized, those that had allowed the use of this, whether for medicinal or recreational purposes, for one reason or the other. Quite a number of them, again, because we follow developments globally. We don't just look at our situation here alone. We follow developments globally. Quite a number of those places, because we followed, reports about these things across the world, and we go to meetings with these people globally to review and exchange notes. And so some of these places are also beginning to review some of their decisions because they have also seen an increase in hospitalization and crime rate as a result of their attitude to the use or abuse of this particular psychoactive substance. Again, coming to our own situation here, the strongest argument so far has been about revenue. That is, if we allow this to be exported and all those kind of things, that it will bring revenue to us. But then, when you look at 10.6 million, as at 2018, 10.6 million people are abusing this particular substance. And so, if again you look at, if we generate say like $1 billion, and we'll have need to build rehabilitation centers or to attend to the medical problem arising from the abuse of this particular substance, if we have to spend $10 billion on managing the health implications and even the security consequence of that, what's the logic there? What's the sense in there? That if we're making $1 billion and we have to spend $10 billion.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that we have to consider when it comes to that. And again, don't forget I said that in a lot of places where this has been decriminalized, where this recreational use of medicinal use has been allowed, quite a number of them are already reviewing their attitude to this because of the grave consequences of this particular of their action.
All right then. Okay. We take our first call this morning. Mr. George in Ikeja. Good morning. Okay, can you hear us? George in Ikeja. Good morning. Okay.
Hello.
Yes. Hello, Mr. George.
Hello, Uncle. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Please, can you show sign if you are hearing me? It's very faint here.
If you're watching your television, I'm giving you 2 thumbs up that we can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Babafemi.
Okay.
I want to use this opportunity to thank Brigadier General Marwa and his team for the good work they've been doing. I've been following your organization since Brigadier Marwa came in, and it brought a whole lot of difference to the fight against hard drugs. It's the same thing with NAFDAC when Professor Dora Akunyili came in. That was when we knew the import of NAFDAC. He's already doing what is expected of him. All I want to say, please tell him that Nigerians are proud of him and that he should not back down by the pressure the bad people are mounting on him. Some of us are aware of some of the things that he's experiencing that cannot be said on air. For example, he should fight on. Some of us appreciate what you guys are doing, irrespective of the risks involved. Nigeria is a great country, and it is great people like you and your team that makes it great. Uncle Yori, I see a president in the making in General Marwa, and I know, by God's grace, it will happen. I wish all of you in that team the strength to succeed, Mr. Babafemi. Thank you.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Mr. George.
Yeah, Yori, can you help me? Unfortunately, I couldn't hear what Mr. George was saying. If you can just help me paraphrase or just summarize for me. Because I have to respond to it.
What he was saying was that he was praising the work of the NDLEA, especially under Buba Marwa, that he has been monitoring activities there, and that he's, as a Nigerian, he's quite happy, he's quite proud with the work that has been going on in that place.
Correct.
So that is really, the essence of what he was saying, and that. But he also now alluded to pressure on the agency to slow down a bit or not continue at the pace at which he is continuing, and he was encouraging you to pay no attention to all those overtures and just go on full blast ahead. And that was where I was going to come in from. That could you talk to that aspect? Are there pressures on the agency from time to time to cut some slack for, the work they're doing?
Well, I don't. First, I would like to appreciate Mr. George for the commendation and the compliments. We do appreciate all of those things coming from stakeholders, especially our citizens. They go a long way to encourage and bolster the morale of our workforce. But then the other leg of his question now, I don't know where.
Well, it wasn't a question; it was an observation. It was an observation.
Okay, then I don't see any reason for that, because I'll tell you that indeed the highest authority in this country is the President of Nigeria, and I can tell you that indeed the President is well seized about the problem of drug abuse and illicit drug trafficking in the country, and he has been supporting the agency when you talk of giving the agency the strength, the bite, and the encouragement, and the funding to go all out. And that's why we're doing what we're doing. Without the highest authority in the country supporting you, you may not be able to do all of the things we are doing. And again, all the stakeholders, whether at the level, whether at the National Assembly, we have just was it last week or so, the National Assembly passed the amended act, the bill of amending the act of the agency. That's another encouragement. There are quite a lot of things that the new bill would really take care of in the operations of the agency. That's an encouragement. That's a support from the National Assembly. Again, when you look at the judiciary, I've just told you that in the last 3 years, we've had more than 9,500 convictions, including high-profile convictions. So, and quite a lot of cases are going on very well in the law court. So that's another encouragement from the judiciary. I did say that at the highest level, we have the support of the executive. So whether at the level of the presidency or at the level of the ministry overseeing the agency, that's the Minister of Justice and the Attorney General of the Federation, who is also well seized about this problem. So I don't really know where, but I can tell you that indeed the volume of drugs that the agency had seized this year alone, including in every area of our activities, there is no letdown, and I don't think that will come from anywhere, because we really have a huge problem that really needs to be addressed headlong and collectively with all our stakeholders, whether at the level of the government or at the level of the citizenry.
All right. Reverend Dominic is waiting on the line. Good morning, Reverend Dominic.
Good morning, Chief Yore.
Thank you.
Good morning, Baba Femi. I don't know whether your guest is hearing me.
Can you hear me, sir? Can you hear Femi? Can you hear him?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Yes, I can.
Yes, he's hearing you.
Okay. Yore, I want to continue where my friend George stopped.
Sure.
But what I want to define is this. Let's take pressure aside. Everywhere in the world, in America, in Colombia, in Brazil, in Thailand, in India, the drug cabal always put pressure on government, but nobody can overwhelm government. That's by the side. But what George is saying about praising them is okay. But Yori, please, I don't know whether he can hear me. If he cannot hear me, give him this message.
He can hear you.
I want him to mention 3 cabals that he has arrested and imprisoned. 3, only 3. Number 2, what is wrong with the man they arrested? That's other GSTP or maybe inspector, I don't know, what police officer called when he was arrested, they arrested him hands down. They have the evidence. They pick him up on the point, so they have the evidence. And the 2 boys who brought in that drug from Enugu have been plead guilty and they're in prison. Why is it they have not prisoned him till today? Why is he in custody? Don't know the truth. When I heard is coming to your session this morning, I saw a madman. Please, you're hearing me. A madman told me that most of these drugs they seize at times go around and come back to the market. I repeat myself again. A madman told me this morning, and he had to walk away, that most of these drugs they seize turn around and come back to the market. One, what is wrong with the Cairo that holds red-handed on the drugs? Why he has not been prisoned? Number 2, let me mention to Nigerians 3 cabals in prison.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, Reverend Dominic. I'll tell you what, Femi, let me quickly take a break.
Okay.
So that, when I come back, you will be uninterrupted by the need to go on a break. Stay with us, please.